Hello, I'm Darlene with Friends of Fairview. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving Fairview Cemetery right here in New Albany, Indiana, and preserving the legacies and the stories of the people that are buried here. So today's story that I want to tell you is the story of Anna Katherine Kunz Hartman. Yes, she had two husbands. The Kunz and the Hartman are her two husbands. But I have to give credit where credit is due. I got the impetus or the motivation, the inspiration to tell this story from this book. Anna Katherine Kunz Hartman, A Legacy of Love. The author is Margaret Kunz O'Mert, and Anna Katherine Kunz Hartman is her great-grandmother. So I ordered this book off Amazon simply for inspiration for myself because I want to write such a book like this for my own family. And then I thought it was fun that the woman in the book, the subject of the book, just happened to be here from New Albany. So I love history, local history. So I thought, oh, let's just get that, learn a little bit about her, and also get inspiration for creating such a book for myself. And so I was so inspired with Anna's story that I am so excited to tell that to you today. So first of all, let me introduce you to Anna Kunz Hartman. There she is, Anna Katherine, wife of Louis Hartman. That's her second husband. We'll get to him in a second. But we really need to begin Anna's story with her parents, and they're buried just right over there. So let's go pick up the story there. Okay, so I'm here with Anna's parents, and here they are. Her father is right here. This is Philip George Schneider, and he actually has a Mason emblem on his headstone, so he was obviously a Mason here in New Albany. And then her mother is right here. That's Anna Katherine Schneider. Now her maiden name was Schuler. So here they are. One thing I want to point out before I go further is look at the detail on the bottom of their headstone. Aren't they beautiful? Just the like fern leaves, and there's ivy trailing up. It's just beautiful. But anyway, about Philip and Anna Schneider. So they both came from an area of France. They were born and raised in an area of France called Alsace-Lorraine, France. Now, I thought that was interesting that they came from France, were born and raised in France, but yet they have German-sounding names. Schneider and Schuler are not at all French-sounding. And so I did a little research on the area and found out that Alsace-Lorraine, France, actually is a territory, as you can see from the map I'm showing you right now, a little territory that is right on the border of France and Germany. And as I dug into the history, I noticed that it kind of sometimes was part of France and sometimes was part of Germany. It kind of went back and forth a little bit. It seemed like there was a contest, that area was contested between France and Germany of who it belonged to for some time. Now, at the time that the Schneiders were there, Philip Schneider and Anna Katherine Schuler were living there. They did not know each other, but they did live in the same area, but they didn't know each other at the time that they were living in France. When they left in 1855. So in 1855, that was right at the beginning of the Second French Empire when Napoleon III was the Emperor of France. So they left right toward the end, right toward the beginning of the Second French Empire, right toward the beginning of Napoleon III's reign. So they didn't see as much of the back and forth. They weren't there when it was part of Germany. It was part of France. It was considered part of France when they were there, even though there was a huge German population living in Alsace-Lorraine, France, which makes sense, which is what I think they were just part of that German population that just happened to settle there because it was just right on the border of Germany. Many other Germans were living there as well. So my thought is that they're of German descent, and there's other reasons why I think so. And I'll tell you more about that in a second. So Alsace-Lorraine, France, though, After they had already left, so they were here in New Albany by the time that, or at least in Harrison County, they were here in Indiana before Alsace-Lorraine, France, that little area would become part of Germany. There were a bunch of, this was before Germany was a unified nation. They were a bunch of little kingdoms and duchies and dukedoms and little principalities, and they were all separate. There was no such thing as a unified Germany. There wasn't. And so the King of Prussia and his Chancellor Otto von Bismarck were concocting a plan to try and find a way to unify all the German states under one nation, one nation state. And so they came up with the plan to kind of provoke France to declare war on Prussia. And so they did succeed in that, because they thought that the other German states would come to their rescue, and then they would be able to kind of get them on their side, and they would form kind of an alliance, and that might be the way that they would be able to create a unified Germany. And they did succeed. That's actually what happened. As the France did declare war on Prussia, all the other little German-speaking states and principalities kind of joined in, all except Austria. And they became one unified Germany by the end of that war. So those German states, that German alliance, did defeat France. Napoleon III was deposed. That was the end of the Second French Empire. This was in 1871, and that was also the beginning of the German Empire, with the King of Prussia, Wilhelm I, as the first emperor, and then the first king or emperor of the German Empire, and then Otto von Bismarck as his chancellor. So that's how it began. And then the Alsace-Lorraine, France, then became part of Germany at that point. But then there was resentments and bitterness within the French people. And so that whole incident kind of was part of what led to, or part of the impetus or motivation for them kind of leading up to World War I. And at the end of World War I, that area of Alsace-Lorraine, France, was returned to France and has been part of France ever since. But all of that back and forth, they were not here for that. They were already here in the United States. But that is the little story about Alsace-Lorraine, France, which I found kind of interesting, right? And that explains why their last names, Schneider and Schuler, not at all French sounding. Them being born in France, we can figure out, we can kind of see how that is. Just there were a huge German population because it was right on the border there. Now, these two, as I said, they sailed for the United States. They immigrated to the U.S. in 1855. They were on the same boat. They did not know each other. And that's where they met. They met on the boat coming over. And so after they both got to the United States, they ended up coming to the same location. They got married. They started raising a family in Harrison County, Indiana. Central Barren, Harrison County, Indiana is where they began. Had a few kids, did some farming and stuff out there, and then they ended up migrating and moving to New Albany, and this is where they were for the rest of the time. The rest of their children were born here in New Albany, and many of them are buried right here in Fairview Cemetery, some of them right here with them. So now Philip was a furniture maker, a cabinet maker, and he had a furniture shop, one of the first ones here in New Albany. So he was Philip G. Schneider. He had a furniture shop, and he was a cabinet maker. Their house was right across from the cemetery here on 6th Street. Right there on Culbertson and 6th, right there, his little shop. Well, it was called Sycamore at that time. Culbertson Street used to be called Sycamore, and that's where they lived. So right across from the cemetery. And actually, there's a funny little story about him that says that one night, because they used to live, like I said, across the street from the cemetery, and there was one night where this white shape was walking through the cemetery, and all the other residents that had houses along the way were scared, and they didn't know what to do, and they were scared because they thought there was a ghost in the cemetery. So they knew that Philip, he was known as being fearless and not afraid of things, and so they figured he would go figure it out. So he did. He walked right over into the cemetery all by himself, and then found out it was a cow. It was just a loose cow that was loose in the cemetery, and so there was the ghost. It was just a cow that had gotten loose. But anyway, so a little cute little story about Philip. So that is basically the story of the two of them. They had 13 children, 7 of which died in infancy or early childhood. Only 6 of those children would make it to adulthood. Let me show you which of their children are here with them. Some I'm not sure because the headstones are broken and it's hard to see who's here. When I tried to dig into the burial records, this is back in the old times when the cemetery was first beginning, and just the burial records are just incomplete, and you know, some things are just missing, and that's just what it is. So let's see who's here. Okay, so here I am. You can see I've got Philip and Anna Schuler-Schneider behind me. Next to them are two little bitty headstones that are broken. It's hard to, you just really don't know who they are. I've tried to figure out who everybody is, but they had so many little babies that died as little babies. It's hard to know who's where, and some of them, honestly, I just don't know where they are. They don't appear to be here. I'm just not sure where some of the children are buried. The little babies are buried. They might be here, just in unmarked graves. I don't know. And the burial records are very inconclusive. Some of them don't appear in the burial records, but I know that they lived. I know they were here. I found evidence of them. I just can't find where they're buried. So I'm not sure who these two little ones are, but my guess is it's 2 of the littlest babies, right? And then right here we have another son. This is Philip, a little boy Philip. He died he was almost 10 when he died. He was 9 years old. So he's here. And then we have Louise Schneider. She was one of their daughters. She lived to be older. She made it to adulthood, but she never married, so she's here. And then we have, she ended up actually moving to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and that's where she died. And then next to her, we have Elizabeth, Lizzie, as you can see. Lizzie. And Lizzie died when she was, I think she was young too, like maybe 12, something like that. She was 12. So she didn't live very long as well. So, or Elizabeth, Lizzie. So that is who of their children are here, but there's some other people here, and actually there's a surprise, because I discovered a surprise when I was researching and trying to figure out who all was in the plot here with them. And, but we'll get there. You'll see. Okay, so this is where her parents are buried. There they are. We were just back there with Philip and Anna Schneider, and then you can see all the lineup of the little ones that I just showed you. But they're buried behind this Schuler monument. Do you see it says Schuler? So who's here in the Schuler monument, which is just right, basically all in the same big plot. So this plot has Schulers and Snyders in it. Now, do you remember me saying that Anna's maiden name was Schuler? Anna Katherine Schuler. So here she is in a plot with a Schuler monument. So let's see who's here. Okay, so we have Bertha Schuler Van Pelt. Here she is. And Bertha is actually Anna Katherine Schuler, her niece. So Anna Katherine's brother's daughter is here, and she married a Van Pelt. So there's, but her husband is buried elsewhere because she died much earlier than he did, so he is buried elsewhere. And then next to her, let's see who we have here. So next to Bertha, you can see we have Louise Schuler Van Pelt Doyle. So Louise is buried here with her husband, James Francis Doyle. So we've got Louise and James Doyle, and Louise's mother, Bertha Schuler Van Pelt. And then right behind all of them, we have the Schneiders, which you remember Anna Katherine Schuler-Snyder. She's a Schuler. So I think it's interesting, as I step back here, it's interesting that the monument here says Schuler, but yet none of them have the last name Schuler. Currently, at the time that they're buried, we've got Van Pelts and Schneiders and Doyles, which I think is interesting. So that is who is here but one person. That surprise I was going to show you. Because here we are, Schuler Monument. There are all the Schulers, the Van Pelts, the Doyles, all of that. There's the Schneiders all in the background with some of their children. Anna Katherine's parents. There you go. Some of her siblings are over here. And then some other Schulers, but then who do we have over here? Let's see. So before we get into that one person I want to show you, I just wanted to say a little bit about Anna Katherine Schneider, the person we're talking about here. So she was born here in New Albany in 1862. She was christened in the German Methodist Church. Another reason why I think, see, there's her parents in the background. Here we are. Her parents, why I think that they were of German descent, even though they were born and grew up in France, because they were part of the German Methodist Church when they came here. Some of the letters were written in Old German that I've seen of theirs, and so I'm pretty sure they were of German descent. But anyway, so Anna Katherine Schneider was born and christened in a German Methodist Church in 1880 or 1862 here in New Albany. Well, she would grow up and go on to marry her first husband. She had two. Her first husband is Samuel Kunz. And look what I find. I find him here. So I was not expecting that I would find her first husband here, because when I saw something about him, it said he was buried in Holland, Indiana. So let me tell you a little bit about Samuel. So there he is. One thing about, though, if you notice, he's got the same beautiful decoration as her parents, right? With the leaves and all of that. Well, now Samuel Kunz was born in Holland, Indiana. His parents were Henry and Maria Kunz. Now Henry, he started the whole town of Holland, Indiana. He was the founder, and they came from Germany. In the 1860 or 1820s, they came from Germany. He was carpentry, furniture, things like that. He started a store when he built his town of Holland, Indiana. He started a store, a mercantile, and he was very prosperous, wealthy, prominent citizen. Well, he founded this. He founded Holland. He founded the city that they were all living in, the town, right? Which is still there, Holland, Indiana. So that's where Samuel was born. Now, it's a mystery as to how Samuel and Anna Katherine, they called Katherine Katie. So at this point, even though her name was Anna Katherine Schneider, she went by Katie. So how Katie and Samuel met each other is a mystery. We do not know, because it's a 74-mile difference. Now, Holland, Indiana, for those of you who may not know, it's heading toward Evansville, Indiana from New Albany, going toward St. Louis. So it's that direction, 74 miles towards St. Louis is where Holland, Indiana is. And how they met, who is anybody's guess, but they got married. She ended up, they started out living in Holland, Indiana. They would have two children. They had little Albert, and then later on in 1882, they would have Florence. Would be born in 1882, and Albert was just a couple years old. So their family moved to New Albany. So at that time that Florence was born in 1882, they were now living here in New Albany. They were living with her parents here in New Albany, which when unfortunately Samuel, he was just in his 20s, he contracted typhoid fever and he died in 1882. In the house of her parents, right here, Philip and Anna Schneider. He died in their house, and he's buried here in their plot with the same type of headstone that they have. So that was a surprise to find that, a pleasant surprise to find that. Obviously a testimony that of the love that they had for their son-in-law, and the father of their 2 grandchildren, that they would bury him here with them, and then make sure they had the beautiful elaborate headstone, the same one that they do. So Samuel is here. Now Anna would go on to remarry, and we'll pick up over where she is buried with her second husband, and we'll go pick up the story there. So let's go see more of Anna's story. Okay, so I'm here in front of the Lewis Hartman monument. This is where we were when we first met Anna, right? At the very beginning of the video, because she's buried here. The Lewis Hartman family plot, because Lewis Hartman was Anna's second husband. So Samuel Kunz was husband number 1. Then he died of typhoid in 1882. He was just in his 20s, and Anna was just young too. She was her early 20s as well. So 3 years later, she would marry Lewis Hartman in 1885. They got married, and they had 2 children together. So her first husband, Samuel Kunz, and Anna had Albert Kunz and Florence Kunz. Now, Albert is married in Bloomington, Indiana, and so that's where he is. But Florence is here, so we're going to meet her. And then Lewis and Anna would go on to have 2 children together as well, Edna and then Oliver. And both Edna and Oliver are buried here in this family plot. So let's see who's here in this family plot, right? Okay, so right here we see Edna K. Snowden. That's Anna and Lewis Hartman's daughter. And next to her is her half-sister, Florence Kunz Everbeck. That is Anna's daughter with her first husband, Samuel Kunz. So there's Florence. So Florence and Edna are buried together. Both of them actually, unfortunately, ended up divorced. So they are buried here with their mother in this plot. And then you can see right here, so they are right in front of the monument. So then if we go this way, we see more people. Let's go see who's over there. So then right here we have Lewis Hartman. And then he's right on the other side of the monument. And there's his daughter and stepdaughter there. Anna's 2 girls. So he's here. And then he's right next to Anna. Okay, so we've got Lewis here. Anna's 2 daughters there. Lewis, and here's Anna. You remember, Anna was actually Lewis's 3rd wife. We have Lewis's other 2 wives here as well. So let's get them all in here. There they are, all 3. So we have Teresa. She was the first wife of Lewis Hartman, and they had 3 children together before she died. And then Frederica, I think she died in her early 20s actually, Teresa. And then Frederica was wife number 2, and they would go on to have several children together. And then Anna, wife number 3. So there are Lewis's 3 wives, and there he is buried right next to them. So there they are. And then next to Teresa is one of her children, Lewis N., son of Lewis Hartman. Lewis and Teresa's son, Lewis. He didn't live very long. So I think he was like 8, let's see, how old was he? 14 maybe? 13, 12, 64, 81. So he was like 14 or 15, something like that when he died. 17 maybe? I don't know. It's math. I am not math. I was an English person, not a math person. Anyway, he didn't live very long. He died, I think, as a teenager. So there is Lewis. And next to Lewis is little Charles. Charles died at 9 years old. He was also a son of Teresa and Louis, his second wife. So Charles and Louis, or Louis N was with the first wife, Teresa, sorry. Charles was with the second wife, Frederica. So second wife, and then son with the first wife. So we can see that there's some more here. So who are all these people? Let's find out. Okay, so we have this little stones here. I'm sure that this is two little ones, because there were several small children of his that died in infancy and early childhood. But back here we have two others that died in early childhood, like when they were young, little bitty. So right here we have Edith, and then right here we have Addie, died in early childhood. There we go. And then we have some more people over there. Let's go see what's happening over there. Here we have Oliver, and then you can see right here, those are the three wives. Right here is Louis Hartman, his father, right behind us. So you remember Oliver was the son with Anna. Anna and Louis had two children, Edna and Oliver. This is Oliver, and Edna is over there as we met her at the beginning. So three of Anna's children are here. She had 4 children altogether. 2 with her first husband, 2 with her second husband. And all three of her 4 children are here. The only one not here is Albert, who is with her first husband, Samuel Kunz. Albert, as I told you, he's in Bloomington. But anyway, 3 of Anna's children are here. So that is all of the Hartman family plot, people that are here. But we have an interesting thing that I discovered when I came here to see who's at the plot. And let's figure that out. Look what I discovered. We have a George William Snyder and his wife, Emily Lick Schneider. And look, we're right behind the Hartmans. There's all the wives. See, we're right behind the Hartman monument. There's the Hartman monument, headstone, all of that. So we're right behind Anna and all of that whole everything. So here is one of Anna's brothers. Her brother, George William, is right here with his wife. And then they are buried with her parents, his wife's parents, the Lick family. So buried with Sabina, and on this side, and then over here we have Henry G. Lick. So these are Anna's brothers' in-laws, step-parents or in-laws of mother and father-in-law, wife's parents. So right behind the Hartmans, we find one of Anna's brothers, George Snyder, and his wife and his wife's parents. And a sister, one of his wife's sisters is buried here too. So just a fun little surprise, right? Okay, so now we've gone through and I've showed you who's all here. Let's just get a lay of the land so we can kind of see how this goes. So there's the 2 daughters up the front. Here's the Louis Hartman monument. There's Louis Hartman. We've got his 3 wives, and then a few of his children from all his 3 wives. So there's 2 here, there's some in the back. Remember, we've got Oliver way in the back here. Right there is Oliver right behind his mother. He is cremated. And then we have Anna, who is right here. Anna. Her brother, right here. Her brother and her brother's wife and her brother's wife's parents are all buried here in the same little area together. Pretty cool, which is very common. What I've discovered, because I love cemeteries, so I'm in them all the time, is that you will see family members that are related, little family groups are buried near each other. Their family plots are like right next to each other or nearby each other. So pretty cool. Anyway, a little bit about Louis and Anna's life. So Louis, a little bit about him. He came from Germany. So he was born in Germany and migrated here. He was a very prominent citizen in New Albany and actually did so many things that it would make this video go so long to go through all of them. But some of the notable ones is he was responsible for helping with the K&I Railroad Bridge. He was responsible for the first library, the Carnegie Library. He was on the school board at the time and was instrumental in getting that first library secured from Carnegie and getting the funding and getting that all set up. He also was responsible for the brand new high school that was built around that same time that the Carnegie was built. He was instrumental in that too. He was on the school board at the time. He was the president of the Chamber of Commerce at the time of his death. He was a prominent businessman. He started out when he was young, when he first migrated over here as a young man. Started out with a butcher and then got into pork packing and then got into cattle, selling and buying cattle and all of that right around the Civil War and the end of that Civil War. Got into pork packing again. Then he started a flour and grain business, which as you can see was on the corner of Pearl and Oak. You can see pictures of it here right now. Was huge, and he was like the main distributor of Pillsbury flour in the area, anywhere in the vicinity. He was the guy, very well known for all of that. He did so many other things. He was very involved in the German Methodist Church. All of the Schneiders, the Schulers, the Hartmans, they were all in that same German community all together in the German Methodist Church. Very involved in their church, very upstanding citizens, all of them. And so very musical family the Schneiders were. And Schulers, Schneiders, all of that, very musical. So a lot of them were into music. Actually, Albert, Anna's son with her first husband, Samuel Kunz, Albert Kunz, who's buried in Bloomington. He was a music instructor there in Bloomington. So that's one thing he did, is he taught music. So just a lot of really cool stuff about this family. Now, Lewis, so that's so many other things I could say about Lewis, but anyway, so one thing that I just want to talk about with the two of them is that when they were together, Anna wrote a bunch of letters to her son Albert when he was away at university, and she was writing about a dream house. Her and Lewis had saved up enough money and they were working on building a dream house on State Street. And so they were building this beautiful, starting to build this house, and in her letters she was updating Albert every time she sent a letter. So there's a whole series of letters that she wrote to him, updating him on the progress of the house and when they think they'll be able to move in, and on and on and on. And so you can see from the pictures I'm showing you now, this is the house. This is the beautiful dream house. It's known as the Kunz Hartman house. You can see from these pictures, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful. It went through several owners after they passed away, and it passed out of their family. It is now owned by the Indiana Landmarks and is the office of the Southeastern Indiana Landmarks District. It's their office now, but they rescued the house. It was falling apart. They rescued it and they restored it to preserve it, and it is a historical landmark for Indiana Landmark there. So this beautiful house here, every time I drive by it, I think how awesome it would be to live in that house. And Anna, right here she is. Anna, this was her dream house and she was so excited to be here. And Lewis here too, their dream house together. And there were the beautiful pictures I'm showing you now from the book that I got the information from. You can see these beautiful pictures of Anna sitting on the front porch, enjoying her house with her family surrounding her. Pretty cool, right? So there was more I could say. You can always say many more things, but I feel like that's probably enough to cover the story of Anna Kunz Hartman. Anna Katherine Schneider Kunz Hartman. So many times the men just overshadow the wives, right? And then I could have focused on Lewis Hartman and told the story of him and all the things he did and all of that. But instead, I just thought this beautiful book that I ran across that told the story of Anna, I thought it would be just meaningful to me to just tell the story of the woman, the woman behind the story, a woman's story, tell her story, because so many times it's all the movers and the shakers, the men that did all the amazing things in the city, get all the recognition, and we forget the women The women just are reduced to a name on a census record, but we never really get to know their story or tell their story or get involved in their story. So today I just wanted to focus on Anna and her story. And Lewis Hartman and all he did, that's part of her story, but that's not the whole story, because she had other parts of her story too. Starting with her parents coming over from France, right? And meeting on the ship, and then deciding to get married and starting out in Harrison County, and then beginning a family, and then moving here to New Albany, having Anna, being born here, and then she married Samuel, and they had 2 children, and then he passed away when she was in her early 20s, and then she remarried 3 years later, Lewis Hartman, and then all the years that they spent together, and then built their beautiful house. And, you know, just think of Anna's life. The joys, the ups, the downs, the heartache, the heartbreak, the tragedy, the loss, the sorrow, the joy. So many little children were died, you know. Not for Anna, her 4 all made it into adulthood. But Lewis Hartman and others, just little children, he lost children, but she lost her husband. So that was a loss. And then just being able to, I don't know, just to live, just to enjoy life. She seems to be someone who enjoyed her life from all that I've been able to see. And what a beautiful story, right? What a beautiful story. The story of someone who loved and enjoyed her life. So one last look at Anna Katherine Kunz Hartman. There you have it. The story of Anna Katherine Kunz Hartman. Until the next time, bye.